Reducing speed limits to increase public safety is a controversial topic that has been debated by safety advocates and the public for many years.
One of the biggest complaints we get in my office is people are speeding.
Initially, speed limits were established by local jurisdictions. However, this resulted in driver confusion and inconsistent speed limits across the state. Because of this, the legislature set limits by statute, but allowed limits to be modified by a speed study conducted by the Minnesota Department of Transportation.
Statutory language has existed for over 80 years. It was authorized by the Minnesota State Legislature for the Minnesota Department of Transportation to set appropriate speed limits for most roads in the state. The reason they did this is because prior to that, the speed limits that were set were very inconsistent.
In 2019, the state legislature allowed cities to set speed limits on streets under their jurisdiction as long as the speed limits are implemented clearly and consistently. The city installs signs to display the new speed limits, and the city develops procedures to set limits and communicates them to the public.
When the statute was changed, our city council was very excited about exploring changing the speed limits in the city.
The report Guidelines for Determining Speed Limits on Municipal Roadways identified a process to assist communities considering a speed limit change.
So once the state statute changed, our council directed us to look into whether or not reducing speed limits made sense for our community. Staff led a technical evaluation. We reached out to members of the community to get their input and feedback, presented some options to City Council, and then ultimately moved forward with implementation.
While there's no denying that slower speeds are safer, changing the speed limit alone is unlikely to modify driver behavior.
We evaluated some data that we had collected for a street in our city that had a lower speed limit posted. And we realized in the data that there was not a change in driver behavior.
Other options and roadway designs can help and should be considered.
Drivers take many things into consideration when they're driving. They look at the road environment, they look at the overall context, they look at the traffic that's going around them, and they go the speed that they feel is appropriate for that.
I think it's important to recognize that replacing signage alone is not going to fully solve the problem, and that in order to be really effective at improving safety for pedestrians and cyclists, you also need to look at the design of the roadways and design them in ways that accommodate pedestrians and cyclists safely and comfortably, and then also encourage drivers to drive at speeds that are more reasonable.
Slower travel speeds are safer for all users when considering the effects of vehicle speeds on roadway safety. However, lowering speed limits alone is not enough. Successfully reducing vehicle speeds also requires changes to the roadway environment. For more information on this topic and a complete copy of the study, please visit the MnDOT website or scan the QR code.